Hey there, welcome back to another video of our /AskReddit. Make sure to like and subscribe to channel for more interesting video like these. Now let's get into today's story video.
Divorce lawyers of Reddit. What client of yours was so bad that you personally hoped they wouldn't get anything in a settlement? Client got caught cheating on his wife, wanted a divorce, but didn't have the balls to tell her so, and asked me to inform her he was filing for divorce 2 days after she had his child. Good Lord man, what a complete and utter coward. Having a kid is hard. I try not to judge people who split not too long after having a kid, because it really does surface things about a significant other that you wouldn't find out unless you had a kid, and I don't think a miserable couple is good for a kid necessarily. But I'm talking about after a couple of years of trying to see if you can make it work and working on your relationship. How are you going to skate 2 days after the baby is born? A relative of mine had her first baby young, but they were married. But when the dad/husband heard she was in labor, he went out partying with buddies and they couldn't find him for days. It was a home birth and her parents helped her deliver the kid and recover. He just disappeared not long after. I have a cousin that was a divorce lawyer and she always said crime law is the worst people on their best behavior and divorce law is good people on their worst behavior. OMG, this hits home. My divorce is finalized and I thank God every day because my ex has fallen off the deep end and even denies things that are in our decree on file with the court. I can't believe that the person he's turned into. I checked out years ago, so I've moved far beyond an emotional response. And just hoping he gets there someday too. I'd hate to live in his head day in and out right now. My dad is like this to this day. 28 years later, and he is still miserable as can be because my mom divorced him. Not that he really loved my mom, but he came from a very conservative family, and having a son out of wedlock and being divorced were seen as very bad. I did have a case where my client fought really hard for the dog, and then ended up turning him over to a shelter. Freaking hole. The ex-wife received an anonymous tip and was able to get him back quickly. Other than that, it isn't usually a client that's bad. Also, if they are, you could just fire them. Typically, it's the opposing counsel/self-represented opposing party that's awful. That's awful. I tell clients who are probably going to have to give up a pet to draft some language in the MSA that specifically states that in the event the opposing party can no longer care for the dog, doesn't want it, etc., etc., my client must be notified in writing of their intent and give client first right of refusal. Not complying comes with serious consequences. You can actually go to jail for it. Am lawyer, but not divorce lawyer. I met someone who used to practice in matrimonials, but switched to crim defense. Their logic was simple. You can reason with most criminals. They want to look out for themselves, but clients of divorces, they will hurt themselves to spite others. To this day, I have since heard all the stories, and I will never practice in that field. Dad was a lawyer. Growing up, we had guns in the house, and when we were old enough, we were taught where they were and how to use them responsibly. Not because of the criminal cases. No, it was because of the divorces. I had friends who had to be pulled from school because an angry dad told their lawyer dad he was going to go to the school and kill lawyer dad's kids. When we were little, we had to change babysitter/daycare once because the owner's son was on the losing side of a case my dad won. In high school, I had a girl ghost me after things had been going really well. Turns out my dad represented a family friend when he divorced the girl's two-timing mom 18 years prior, and mom refused to let her daughter date me because she was still salty about being taken to the cleaners. Divorce makes people crazy. Happened in my family, and thinking about it, it makes me see how now why my aunts and uncles turned out the way they were. My grandmother left her first husband, and he was very angry. To be fair, she did him dirty by getting pregnant by another man while he was on away duty. He came to the old family home one day and told the kids to come outside. They all refused and he kept trying to get into the door. He left, and as he was leaving they could see he had a gun tucked behind his back. He was planning on killing my grandmother and wanted the kids out of the house. Divorce is such a nasty thing. There were only 4 times I ever felt in danger. In elementary school, my dad moved in above his office after his own divorce. One night, I went downstairs to the office part to get some paper and pens. He told me not to ever do that after dark on the weekends. There were a couple of bars across the street frequented by people who thought he'd done them wrong, and he didn't want them trying to break in if they saw one of his kids. In middle school, he had someone try to break into a house he was renting. The guy broke through a door window and was trying to unlock the door when he was met with a pistol in his face and my dad telling him he was about to have a really bad night if he kept coming in. In high school, there was a night where my dad sent a friend and I away because someone had threatened to come kill him at his house that night. He stayed up all night house with his guns at the ready, but nothing happened. Either way, he didn't want me and a friend around if it turned out to be more than an empty threat. In college, I lived with my dad. Woke up one morning to find my laptop gone along with some other valuables in a car at a driveway. I grabbed the shotgun and stood at the edge of our driveway while one of his former clients got the message and returned everything through the dog door. He always kept a pistol in his desk drawer at his office and a shotgun ready to go at his house just in case. Probably nothing is going to happen, but it's good to be prepared. I wasn't the lawyer. My close family member was. Couple had 2 kids, one healthy, one severely disabled. Like 24-hour-a-day care, more surgeries than birthdays. Will never have a normal life. Might maybe possibly learn to speak a word or two eventually. Will never be out of diapers. Client's idea of the divorce was that his soon-to-be ex-wife would take the disabled kid and move out of the house. He would keep the house and the healthy kid, and his girlfriend would move in. He would contribute nothing to the ex-wife, and nothing toward the care of the disabled kid, for the rest of his life. They would just evaporate. The judge was not impressed. She got everything the judge could possibly give her. The house, the nicer car, both kids, alimony, and the maximum child support allowed by law. I think the judge would have turned the guy over his knee and spanked him, if it had been possible. The judge's reaction to this man's mistreatment and abandonment of his special needs child does my heart good. I just wish that poor child didn't have to experience such a vile person. I will say until I am blue in the face, so many couples could have a special needs child. Either from birth or later in childhood, it's actually not uncommon at all. And even this father could have a disability one day. Not a divorce lawyer, but I did do some family work in my articles. Never had a client so bad that I hope they didn't get anything, but I certainly had one that I lost a lot of sympathy for. Had a client who had visitation with his daughter every 2 weeks over Skype. He comes to me saying that she never shows up. I go to the other side and ask what is going on. They tell me that the daughter waits every time and my client never shows up. I resend the schedule out to my client and the other lawyer and remind everyone to show up. 2 weeks later and my client is back telling me that his daughter didn't show up. I send the schedule to everyone again with stronger wording about showing up. The other lawyer tells me that my client is lying because the daughter has showed up every time and he has never even logged on. We go through this charade a few times and finally I start sending reminders to both parties about the evening Skype session. After about the 3rd time of sending reminders on the day of, my client emails me that it's not the right day for the Skype. This idiot had been signing it on the wrong every other week for months and had never once bothered to check the schedule that I had repeatedly given him or read the reminders I had sent. I had felt bad that he hadn't been able to see his daughter before this but after. Not a whole lot of sympathy. Not a divorce lawyer, but this happened with a family member. Both parties were unhappy and mutually decided they didn't want to be married anymore. This was back in the day where it was more viable to be a single-income family. She was a homemaker for 30-plus years, raising her 4 kids. He was fine with her leaving and them getting a divorce. However, he felt that she shouldn't get anything in the divorce. She didn't deserve the house or one of the cars or any portion of the savings/retirement because he was the one who worked. Since he was the only one who worked, every one of the assets was his to keep. Obviously, their respective divorce lawyers and the court disagreed. He went through 3 different lawyers, who each fired him B/C of his abusive attitude when they weren't able to secure the divorce judgment he wanted. He keeps everything, she gets nothing. Then, he decided that the court wasn't allowed to pass any judgments in the case if he wasn't present. So he just stopped attending any of the hearings, which worked the first 2 times. After rescheduling twice, the court lost patience and just ruled in her favor on every item B/C. He wasn't there to contest anything. I'm very sure that in the end, they just followed the state's given guidelines for dividing things up. But yeah, he probably deserved to get burned a bit more than he did, given how he handled it all. This was in the UK, so it's solicitors, but all the same. Someone else in the office had a family case where she decided she wasn't going to work for the client anymore because they were becoming increasingly difficult to deal with. It was a long time ago, so I can't remember for sure, but after we stopped working for them, I think they started harassing the solicitor, calling her multiple times a day, and just generally being a nuisance. A couple of days later, I realize a car has been sat in our car park for quite a while with people inside it and just staring into my ground floor office. I asked the receptionist what's going on, and we realize it's this person that has been ditched as a client. The branch manager went out to the car and told them it was a private car park and they were going to have to leave. There was a lot of shouting on the ex-client's part plus whoever was in the car with them. Eventually they leave, but the strange part was that they filmed the entire thing as if them sat on private property. Attempting to harass the staff was a win for them. I've no idea what happened to them, but I sure hope they didn't get custody of the kids. OMG creepy. When I was fresh out of school, I took a temp job as a secretary for 2 solicitors, and a man would call the office every few days to curse me out. Apparently, I was a slut and a hoe for working there. This was my first job, so I just listened for a bit and then told him, "Sir, I'm going to hang up now," because I was stressed and didn't know what to do. I told the solicitor. And he said, "Oh yeah, that guy. Sorry about that. We were the solicitors for his ex. You should have just hung up immediately." I was so young. Not a lawyer, but when my parents got divorced, my father suggested a parent trap-like arrangement, or he would get full custody of my brother and my mom would get custody of me because it's only fair that each parent gets to keep one child. It's 50/50. Pretty sure this is illegal here, and even if it were possible, no sane lawyer would ever agree to this. He actually sent that to her over text, and we still have the screenshots. Mom only sent back, "Are you delusional?" Not a lawyer, but this is one of the memories my husband has of his parents' divorce. They were ordered by the courts to go to family therapy so they could learn how to co-parent. They each refused until their lawyers told them that they would be held in contempt of court for not going. So they finally went. At the end of the very first session, the therapist said that the best course of action was for them to interact as little as possible because they were in no way capable of being civil, even for the sake of their children. Dad was a lawyer. Growing up, we had guns in the house, and when we were old enough, we were taught where they were and how to use them responsibly. Not because of the criminal cases. No, it was because of the divorces. I had friends who had to be pulled from school because an angry dad told their lawyer dad he was going to go to the school and kill lawyer dad's kids. When we were little, we had to change babysitter/daycare once because the owner's son was on the losing side of a case my dad won. In high school, I had a girl ghost me after things had been going really well. Turns out my dad represented a family friend when he divorced the girl's 2-timing mom 18 years prior, and mom refused to let her daughter date me because she was still salty about being taken to the cleaners. Divorce makes people crazy. Happened in my family, and thinking about it, it makes me see how now why my aunts and uncles turned out the way they were. My grandmother left her first husband, and he was very angry. To be fair, she did him dirty by getting pregnant by another man while he was on away duty. He came to the old family home one day and told the kids to come outside. They all refused, and he kept trying to get into the door. He left, and as he was leaving, they could see he had a gun tucked behind his back. He was planning on killing my grandmother and wanted the kids out of the house. Divorce is such a nasty thing.